Every daughter of narcissistic parents has these unusual traits. Carl Jung. She apologizes for things that aren't her fault. She reads the room before she enters it. She can sense a mood shift from across the house, and she's always asking herself, am I too much or not enough? If you recognized yourself in those words, you're not alone. And more importantly, there's a reason why. Today we're diving deep into something Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist, understood decades ago, how growing up with narcissistic parents creates a unique psychological fingerprint in daughters, traits so specific, so unusual, that once you see them, you can't unsee them. I'm going to share 12 traits that almost every daughter of a narcissistic parent develops. But here's what makes this video different. We're not just identifying the wounds. We're understanding the psychology behind them. And most importantly, we're talking about the path to healing. So if you've ever felt like you're too sensitive, too anxious, or just different, this video is for you. Let's begin. Before we start, if you're interested in psychology, self-development, or understanding the hidden patterns that shape who we are, hit that subscribe button. This is going to be a journey. Let me start with a story. I want you to imagine a little girl. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah is 7 years old, and she just won first place in her school's art competition. She's bursting with excitement. She runs home, clutching her blue ribbon, ready to share her joy. But when she walks through the door, her mother barely looks up. "That's nice, dear," she says flatly, then immediately launches into a story about her accomplishments when she was young. Or worse, she criticizes the artwork. The colors are a bit much, don't you think? Mrs. Henderson's daughter won last year with something much more sophisticated. Sarah's smile fades. She learns something in that moment, something that will shape the next 30 years of her life. Her joy doesn't matter. Her accomplishments are either threats or opportunities for her parent to shine. Her worth is conditional. This is the daily reality for daughters of narcissistic parents. Defining narcissistic parenting. Now, let's be clear about what we mean by narcissistic parent. We're not talking about parents who occasionally have bad days or make mistakes. All parents are human and imperfect. We're talking about a consistent pattern of behavior where the parent views the child as an extension of themselves, not a separate person. Requires constant admiration and validation, often from the child. Shows little genuine empathy for the child's feelings or needs. Uses the child to regulate their own self-esteem. Creates an environment where the child's role is to serve the parent's emotional needs. Carl Jung didn't use the term narcissistic parent specifically, but he understood this dynamic intimately. He wrote extensively about what he called the wounded child archetype, and how parents unconsciously pass their unresolved traumas to their children. Jung believed that when a parent cannot see their child as a separate being with their own soul and destiny, they create what he called a psychic infection, a transfer of the parent's shadow onto the child. The daughter's unique experience. Why are we focusing specifically on daughters today? Because the experience of daughters with narcissistic parents often differs from sons in crucial ways. Daughters are frequently expected to be emotional caretakers. They face unique cultural pressures around beauty, compliance, and self-sacrifice. Mother-daughter. Relationships with narcissistic mothers create a specific kind of mirror wound. Father-daughter relationships with narcissistic fathers shape how daughters view their worth in male attention. These daughters grow up in an environment Jung would describe as psychologically unsafe, where authenticity is punished and performance is rewarded. The result? A set of traits so consistent, so specific, that therapists can often identify these daughters within the first session. Let's explore them. Trait 1. Hypervigilance and reading the room. The first trait is one you might not even realize. You have because it feels so normal, so automatic. Hypervigilance. Daughters of narcissistic parents develop what psychologists call Environmental scanning, a constant, exhausting radar system that's always running in the background. You walk into a room and within seconds you've assessed who's in a bad mood, where the tension is, what might go wrong, how you need to adjust your behavior. One woman described it to me like this. I feel like I have 10 invisible antennae always extended, picking up every microsignal in the environment. It's exhausting, but I can't turn it off. The psychological origin. This develops because narcissistic parents are emotionally unstable and unpredictable. A child never knows which parent they're going to get. Will mom be warm today or cold? Will dad explode over something small or be the fun parent? Is it safe to share my feelings or will they be used against me later? So the child develops an early warning system. Jung would call this the development of a false self, a personality structure designed entirely around predicting and managing the parent's emotional states. The child becomes an expert in reading facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, and energy. This isn't a skill they chose to develop. It's a survival mechanism. The adult manifestation. As adults, these daughters can't relax at social gatherings because they're constantly monitoring, feel responsible for everyone else's emotional state, experience anxiety in situations others find neutral, are exhausted after social interactions because they've been working the whole time. One of the most painful aspects, others see you as intuitive or empathetic. But it doesn't feel like a gift, it feels like a burden you can't put down. The shadow side. Jung always reminded us that every trait has a shadow. The shadow of hypervigilance is this. You become so attuned to others that you lose connection with yourself. You can tell what everyone else needs, but you have no idea what you need. You can sense everyone else's discomfort, but you're numb to your own. This is where healing must begin, learning to turn those antennae inward. Trait 2, chronic self-doubt and questioning reality. Did that really happen? Or am I being too sensitive? Maybe I'm making it up. Maybe I'm crazy. If this internal dialogue sounds familiar, you're experiencing the second trait, chronic self-doubt and difficulty trusting your own perception of reality. This is what psychologists now call the lasting effects of gaslighting, and it's devastating. What gaslighting looks like in narcissistic families. Here's how it typically plays out. Your narcissistic mother snaps at you cruelly over breakfast. You're hurt. Later, you try to address it. Mom, what you said this morning really hurt my feelings. She looks at you with utter confusion. I never said that. You're being dramatic. Why are you always so sensitive? I think you're remembering wrong. Or worse, I was joking. Can't you take a joke? There's something wrong with you if you took that seriously. This happens repeatedly throughout childhood. Your lived experience is constantly denied, minimized, or rewritten. The psychological impact. Jung understood that psychological health requires what he called a stable ego, a solid sense of self that can withstand challenges. But daughters of narcissistic parents develop what modern psychology calls a fragmented sense of self. They learn that their perceptions can't be trusted. Their feelings aren't valid. Their memories are unreliable. As one woman told me, I second-guess everything. Did that person really say that with an edge? Or am I imagining it? Is my partner actually being dismissive? Or am I being too sensitive? I can't trust my own mind. The adult cost. As adults, these daughters struggle to make decisions because they don't trust their judgment, constantly seek external validation. Is this reasonable? Am I overreacting? Stay in toxic relationships because they can't trust their read on the situation. Apologize excessively, even for things that aren't their fault. Research and overanalyze every decision, looking for the objective truth. The tragic irony? These women often have excellent intuition and judgment, but they've been trained not to trust it. The path forward. Jung's answer to this was what he called individuation, the process of becoming a whole integrated self. For daughters of narcissistic parents, this means learning to trust your body's signals. Your anxiety is information, not proof you're crazy. Documenting your experiences, Journaling helps combat gaslighting. Finding witnesses, therapy, support groups, friends who validate your reality, building evidence that your perceptions are accurate. Healing is learning to say, this is what I experienced. This is what I felt. And that is valid. End of story. Trait 3, people-pleasing and difficulty with boundaries. Trait number 3 might be the most exhausting of all. Extreme people-pleasing and an almost complete inability to set boundaries. Let me paint a picture. You're exhausted. You've worked a 10-hour day. You finally sit down, ready to relax. Your phone buzzes. A friend asks if you can help them move this weekend. You don't want to. You need rest. You have plans. But what comes out of your mouth? Of course. I'd love to help. And then you spend the next 3 days resenting it, but unable to back out because you already said yes. Sound familiar? The origin boundaries as dangerous. In narcissistic families, boundaries are not just discouraged, they're punished. A healthy boundary sounds like, I need some alone time. I don't want to talk about this right now. That doesn't work for me. But with a narcissistic parent, boundaries are met with, shh, how dare you talk to me that way? Guilt. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? Withdrawal. Fine, I guess you don't love me. Punishment, silent treatment, withheld affection, increased criticism. So the child learns boundaries are dangerous. Saying no costs too much. Other people's needs always come first. Jung would say the child has no intact ego boundary, no clear sense of where they end and others begin. The people-pleasing pattern. As adults, these daughters cannot say no without excessive guilt and anxiety, overcommit and then burn out, feel responsible for everyone else's happiness, sacrifice their own needs automatically, are terrified of disappointing others, feel like good people should never have limits. One woman described it beautifully. I'll set myself on fire to keep others warm, and then wonder why I'm burned. The hidden resentment. Here's what no one talks about. People pleasers are often filled with resentment. You're furious with everyone you've said yes to, but you can't express it because you're the one who said yes. You're the one who didn't set boundaries. So the anger turns inward and becomes shame. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject and push down. For daughters of narcissistic parents, anger and self-assertion are often entirely in the shadow. What healing looks like. Healing doesn't mean becoming selfish or cruel. It means understanding this truth. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors. They allow you to choose what comes in and what stays out. Learning to set boundaries means recognizing that no is a complete sentence, understanding that disappointing others is sometimes necessary and healthy, accepting that you cannot control how people react to your boundaries, tolerating the discomfort of guilt without giving in to it. As therapist Nedra Glover Tawwab says, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. That's the goal. Trait 4, perfectionism and fear of failure. Trait number 4 is perfectionism, but not the I like things organized kind. I'm talking about the crushing, paralyzing fear that anything less than perfect equals worthlessness. The performance of worthiness. In narcissistic families, love is conditional. It's not given freely, it must be earned. And it's earned through achievement, compliance, making the parent look good, never causing problems. So the daughter learns perfection equals safety. Mistakes equal rejection. One woman told me, I got a 95 on a test in 5th grade. I was so proud. My dad looked at it and said, what happened to the other 5 points? I've never forgotten that moment. It taught me that my best was never good enough. Jung's perspective, the wounded self. Jung would see this perfectionism as the development of what he called a persona, a mask we wear for the world. But in healthy development, we know the persona is a mask. We have a real self underneath. For daughters of narcissistic parents, the mask becomes everything. There is no self underneath, only the performance. These daughters believe, I am what I achieve. My value is in my productivity. If I'm not perfect, I'm nothing. Rest is laziness. Mistakes are catastrophic. The adult cost. Adult manifestations include procrastination. If I can't do it perfectly, I won't start at all. Burnout. Constantly pushing beyond healthy limits. Imposter syndrome. Believing your accomplishments aren't real. Inability to enjoy achievements. Already focused on the next goal. Harsh self-criticism. Your internal voice sounds like your narcissistic parent. The cruelest irony? These daughters often are high achievers. They're successful, accomplished, admired. But it never feels like enough because the goal isn't achievement. It's the impossible quest for conditional love that was never really available. The healing path. Healing from perfectionism means grieving what you'll never get from your parent, learning to separate your worth from your productivity, practicing self-compassion, talking to yourself like you talk to a friend, deliberately doing things imperfectly, celebrating effort, not just outcomes. Jung's concept of integrating the shadow is crucial here. You must embrace your imperfect, messy, human parts, the parts that fail, make mistakes, and need rest. Because here's the truth. You were always enough. You were enough as a child before you achieved anything. You're enough now even on your worst day, but you have to choose to believe it. Trait 5, emotional dysregulation and intensity. Trait number 5 catches many daughters of narcissistic parents off guard. Emotional intensity and difficulty regulating emotions. You might think, yeah, wait, I thought we were supposed to be numb and disconnected. And yes, that's often true. But many daughters experience the opposite, or they swing between both extremes. The emotional flooding. These daughters often experience emotions that feel overwhelming and all-consuming, difficulty calming down once upset, intense reactions to seemingly small triggers, crying too easily or too much, feeling too sensitive compared to others. One woman described it like this: when I feel something, I don't just feel it, I am it. Sadness isn't something I have, it's everything I am in that moment. I'm drowning in it. Why this happens? The developmental explanation. Children learn emotional regulation from their parents. A healthy parent helps a child name emotions, validate them, and develop coping strategies. You're feeling angry because your toy broke. That makes sense. Anger is okay. Let's take some deep breaths together. But narcissistic parents do the opposite. They punish emotional expression. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. They make the child's emotions about themselves. You're crying to manipulate me. They're emotionally dysregulated themselves, raging one moment, cold the next. They offer no co-regulation or soothing, so the child never learns how to identify what they're feeling, that emotions are temporary and manageable, how to self-soothe, that it's safe to feel. Jung's view, the unlived life. Jung believed that repressed emotions don't disappear. They accumulate in the unconscious and eventually burst forth. For daughters of narcissistic parents, childhood was spent suppressing emotions to stay safe. But those emotions are still there, waiting. As adults, they emerge as sudden emotional outbursts that feel out of proportion, anxiety and panic attacks, depression, physical symptoms, chronic pain, fatigue, illness. Jung would say these are messages from the unconscious. You have unlived life, unexpressed grief, unprocessed rage, and it demands to be felt. The other side, emotional numbness. For some daughters, the defense is the opposite, complete emotional shutdown. They feel nothing. They're disconnected, dissociated, numb. This is what psychologists call affect suppression, a defense mechanism where emotions are so dangerous that the psyche simply turns them off. These daughters say, I don't cry anymore. I don't feel much of anything. I'm just flat. The healing journey. Healing emotional dysregulation requires learning to name emotions. I'm feeling anxious, not I'm anxious. Understanding that feelings aren't facts. Developing a feeling vocabulary beyond good, bad, fine. Practicing distress tolerance. You can feel uncomfortable without needing to fix it immediately. Finding healthy outlets, movement, creativity, therapy. Jung's prescription was what he called active imagination, dialoguing with your emotions as if they were separate entities with messages for you. Anxiety, what are you trying to tell me? What do you need me to know? This transforms emotions from enemies into messengers. Trait 6. Difficulty receiving love and compliments. You look beautiful today. What? No, I look terrible. But thanks, I guess. Great job on that presentation. Oh, it wasn't that good. I messed up the third slide. I really appreciate you. I didn't do anything special. If you reflexively deflect compliments and struggle to receive love, you're experiencing trait number 6, the compliment as threat. For daughters of narcissistic parents, compliments and expressions of love are complicated and dangerous because they might be conditional. You look so pretty when you smile. You should smile more. The compliment is actually a criticism. They might come with strings attached. I love you so much, which is why you need to love as manipulation. They might be narcissistic supply. You're so accomplished. I raised you so well. Yeah, the compliment is really about the parent. They might precede punishment. You're such a good girl. So I know you'll understand why I need you to. So the child learns. Compliments are warnings. Love has conditions. Receiving means owing, the adult pattern. As adults, these daughters cannot accept compliments without deflecting or minimizing. Feel uncomfortable when people are kind for no reason. Wait for the other shoe to drop when treated well. Self-sabotage relationships when they become too good. Believe deep down that they're unlovable or don't deserve love. This is what psychologists call an insecure attachment style. Specifically, what's called dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant attachment. Jung's concept, the unworthy self. Jung would say these daughters have internalized what he called a negative complex, a cluster of beliefs, emotions, and memories organized around the core idea. I am unworthy. When someone offers genuine love, it contradicts the complex. And the psyche doesn't handle contradiction. Well, it's more comfortable staying with what's familiar, even if that familiar thing is pain. So the daughter either rejects the love, they don't really mean it, deflects it, they're just being nice, doesn't believe it, if they really knew me, they wouldn't love me. The self-fulfilling prophecy. The most painful part? This becomes self-fulfilling. You can't receive love, so people stop offering it. You push people away, so they leave. You test people until they fail, so they fail. And then you say to yourself, see? I was right. I am unlovable. Jung called this the shadow projection. You're projecting your parents' rejection onto everyone else. The way out. Healing means practicing receiving. Start small. Accept a compliment. Just say thank you, noticing the discomfort without acting on it, challenging the automatic thoughts. Their lying becomes what if they mean it. Choosing to believe people's positive words even if it feels fake at first. Working with a therapist on attachment healing. One exercise. When someone compliments you, imagine your younger self hearing it. Would you deflect on her behalf, or would you want her to receive it fully? You deserve what you'd give her. Trait 7. High tolerance for mistreatment. Trait number 7 is both heartbreaking and incredibly important to understand. Daughters of narcissistic parents develop an abnormally high tolerance for mistreatment. The shifted baseline. Here's what I mean. Most people have a baseline for how they expect to be treated. When someone falls below that baseline, when they're consistently rude, dismissive, manipulative, or cruel, a healthy person thinks, this isn't okay. This needs to change or I need to leave. But daughters of narcissistic parents have a baseline set so low that behaviors others would find intolerable feel normal. A friend who constantly criticizes, that's just how friendships are. A partner who gives the silent treatment, at least they're not yelling. A boss who demeans you, well, that's work. One woman told me, I stayed in an emotionally abusive relationship for 7 years. My friends kept asking why I didn't leave. The truth? It didn't feel that bad. Compared to my childhood, it was almost comfortable. Why this happens? Normalizing abuse. When you grow up in dysfunction, dysfunction becomes your normal. As the saying goes, you can't miss what you've never had. If you've never experienced consistent kindness, respect for your boundaries, genuine apologies, accountability, unconditional positive regard, then you don't know you're missing them. You don't have the template for what healthy relationships look like. Jung would describe this as an archetype deficit. You never internalized the archetype of the good parent, so you don't know what good parenting or good treatment looks like in practice. The red flags you miss. Daughters of narcissistic parents often miss red flags that others see immediately. Love bombing feels like the attention you always craved. Hot and cold behavior feels familiar and manageable. Gaslighting, already normalized. Guilt tripping, just like home. Conditional approval, the only kind you know. And when friends say, "This person is treating you terribly," you genuinely don't see it. To you, it's not that bad, because bad is where you started, the rationalization. These daughters also become experts at rationalizing mistreatment. They're just going through a hard time. They don't really mean it. I'm probably being too sensitive. At least they're not, "I'm sure I did something to deserve it." This is sometimes called trauma bonding. You're bonded not to the person, but to the pattern. The toxicity feels like home. Breaking the pattern. Healing requires learning what healthy relationships actually look like, therapy, books, observing healthy relationships, identifying your non-negotiables. What will you absolutely not accept? Noticing when you're making excuses for poor treatment, raising your standards. This feels arrogant at first, but it's actually just healthy. Tolerating the discomfort of being treated well. Jung believed healing came through what he called individuation, becoming your true self. Part of that is claiming your right to be treated with dignity. You're not too demanding for wanting respect. You're not too sensitive for requiring kindness. You're not asking for too much when you expect consistency. You're asking for the bare minimum, and you deserve even more than that. Trait 8, caretaking and parentification. Trait number 8 is what psychologists call parentification, and it's one of the most damaging patterns in narcissistic family systems, the child as parent. Parentification happens when the roles reverse. The child becomes the emotional or practical caretaker of the parent. This looks like comforting your mother through her emotions, managing your father's anger, acting as mediator between your parents, caring for siblings because the parent is checked out, being your parent's therapist, best friend, or confidant, sacrificing your childhood to meet adult responsibilities. One woman described it perfectly. "I was my mother's mother. By age 10, I was the one telling her everything would be okay. I was managing her moods. I was taking care of her feelings. I didn't have a mother. I had a child I was responsible for." The 2 types. Psychologists identify 2 types. Emotional parentification. Being responsible for the parent's emotional well-being. Don't upset your mother. Listening to inappropriate adult problems. Being the parent's emotional support animal. Instrumental parentification. Being responsible for practical household family management. Cooking, cleaning beyond age-appropriate chores. Caring for younger siblings. Managing finances or adult responsibilities. Both rob the child of childhood. Jung's view, the wounded child. Jung wrote extensively about what he called the wounded child archetype, the part of us that didn't get to be a child. He believed that when a child is forced into adult roles prematurely, a part of the psyche remains frozen in childhood, longing for what was lost. This creates a split. Part of you is hypermature, responsible, competent. Part of you is still the neglected child, desperately needing care. As an adult, you might be incredibly capable and together on the outside, while feeling empty and needy on the inside. The adult consequences. Daughters who were parentified become caretakers in all relationships, struggle to ask for help or support, feel guilty when they prioritize their own needs, are attracted to people who need fixing or saving, burn out repeatedly because they're always giving, feel like they have to earn their place in relationships by being useful. The core belief is, My value is in what I can do for others. If I stop caretaking, I'll be abandoned. The resentment nobody talks about. Here's what's rarely discussed. Parentified children are often furious, even if they can't access that anger. You're angry that your childhood was stolen. You're angry that you had to be the adult. You're angry that you still feel responsible for your parents' well-being, even decades later. But anger at parents feels dangerous and wrong, so it gets buried. It emerges as depression, passive aggression, chronic fatigue, resentment in current relationships. The path to recovery. Healing from parentification means grieving the childhood you didn't have, giving yourself permission to be irresponsible sometimes, learning to receive care without having to earn it, recognizing that your parents' emotions are not your job, setting boundaries with family members who still expect you to caretake, allowing yourself to feel and express anger. Jung's concept of reparenting yourself is crucial here. You must become the parent to your own inner child that your actual parent never was. This means treating yourself with patience, gentleness, and unconditional care, not because you've done something to earn it, but simply because you exist. Trait 9. Difficulty with identity and the chameleon effect. Who am I? I don't actually know. If that question haunts you, you're experiencing trait number 9. Identity diffusion and what I call the chameleon effect, the shapeshifter. Daughters of narcissistic parents often describe feeling like shapeshifters. With one friend, they're outgoing and fun. With another, they're serious and intellectual. With a partner, they mirror that person's interests and opinions. With family, they become someone else entirely. And underneath all of it, there's a terrifying question. Which one is the real me? Or is there even a real me at all? Why identity never forms. Identity formation is a crucial developmental task. Psychologist Erik Erikson called it the central challenge of adolescence. To develop identity, a child needs permission to explore different interests, validation of their authentic preferences, freedom to disagree with parents, support for their unique personality, recognition as a separate person. But narcissistic parents don't allow this. Instead, the child must reflect the parent's image. Disagreement is betrayal. Different preferences are rejection. Uniqueness is threatening. The child exists to validate the parent's identity, so the daughter learns, I am whoever you need me to be. Jung's theory, the persona without the self. This is where Jung's work becomes crucial. Jung distinguished between the persona, the mask we show the world, the self, the authentic core of who we are. In healthy development, we know the difference. We can put on the persona when needed, professional behavior at work. But we know it's a mask. We have access to our true self. But daughters of narcissistic parents develop what Jung would call persona, identification. They are the mask. There's no authentic self underneath, or that self is so buried that it's inaccessible. The chameleon in relationships. This plays out intensely in romantic relationships. You become whoever your partner wants you to be. You adopt their hobbies, opinions, friend groups. You lose yourself in the relationship. When it ends, you have no idea who you are anymore. One woman told me, after my divorce, I looked in the mirror and had no idea who was looking back. I'd spent 15 years being his wife. When that ended, there was nothing. I had to build myself from scratch. The terror of authenticity. Even when these daughters get glimpses of their authentic selves, expressing it feels terrifying because what if people don't like the real me? What if I'm rejected for who I actually am? What if my real self isn't good enough? So they retreat back into the chameleon role. At least that feels safe and controllable. Finding yourself. Jung's process of individuation is exactly what's needed. Discovering and becoming your true self. This requires spending time alone to hear your own voice, experimenting with preferences. What do I actually like? Noticing when you're performing versus when you're being authentic, expressing opinions even when they differ from others. tolerating the discomfort of being seen as you really are, working through the fear that your authentic self isn't lovable. Start with small things. Order what you want at a restaurant, not what someone else orders. Listen to your music, not what's playing in the room. Share your actual opinion even if it's different. Notice what you're drawn to when no one's watching. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For daughters of narcissistic parents, this isn't just a privilege, it's the healing journey itself. Trait 10, imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud. Trait number 10 is imposter syndrome, and for daughters of narcissistic parents, it runs deeper than the typical experience. The permanent outsider. I don't belong here. Everyone is going to figure out I'm a fraud. I just got lucky. I'm not actually good at this. I'm fooling everyone, and soon they'll see the truth. Even when you're objectively successful, maybe especially when you're successful, you feel like an imposter. Why this develops? Remember, in narcissistic families, the daughter's achievements serve the parent's ego, so successes are attributed to the parent. You got your intelligence from me? Failures are blamed on the daughter. You're lazy just like your father. Achievements are simultaneously demanded and resented. The daughter is never allowed to feel authentic pride. So she learns, my accomplishments aren't really mine. And when people see the real me, they'll be disappointed. The internal narrative. The imposter syndrome voice sounds like this. I'm not smart, I just work hard. I'm not talented, I just got lucky. I'm not capable, I'm just good at faking it. People think I'm competent, but they don't know the real me. One high-achieving lawyer told me, I've won major cases. I've been promoted multiple times. I'm objectively successful. But every single day, I wait for someone to walk into my office and say, we've made a terrible mistake. You're fired. Jung's perspective, the split self. Jung would see this as another manifestation of the split between the persona, the successful professional, and the shadow, the worthless child. The daughter has internalized her parents' view. You're not actually special. You're ordinary at best, probably worse. No amount of external success can override this internal conviction because it's not based on evidence. It's based on the fundamental wound of never being truly seen and valued as you are. The sabotage pattern. Imposter syndrome leads to self-sabotage before they find out, overworking to prove your worth, inability to internalize accomplishments, chronic anxiety in professional settings, difficulty negotiating or advocating for yourself, staying in positions below your skill level because they feel safe. The cruelest part? The more successful you become, the worse the imposter syndrome can get, because the gap between your achievements and your self-image grows larger. The healing process. Overcoming imposter syndrome requires recognizing the voice of imposter syndrome as your parent's voice, not truth. Collecting evidence of competence. Keep a wins folder. Sharing your feelings. Most successful people feel this way. Accepting compliments and achievements as real. Understanding that belonging doesn't require perfection. Jung's answer was integrating the shadow, acknowledging both your gifts and your limitations, your successes, and your failures as equally real and equally part of you. You're not an imposter. You're a human being who has accomplished real things while carrying an old wound. The wound is real, but so are your achievements. Trait 11, chronic anxiety and hyperarousal. Trait number 11 is chronic. Anxiety, not the occasional worry everyone experiences, but a constant baseline of tension and hyperarousal. The body that can't relax. These daughters describe never feeling truly relaxed, a sense of waiting for something bad to happen. Physical tension they carry constantly, difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. A nervous system that's always on, feeling like they're running from something, even when sitting still. One woman said, even on vacation, even when everything is fine, there's this hum of anxiety in my body. It never stops. I don't remember what calm feels like. The neurobiology of growing up in chaos. Here's what happens in the brain. When a child grows up in an unpredictable, emotionally volatile environment, Their nervous system develops in a state of chronic stress. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex, which regulates emotions, is underdeveloped. The body learns to live in constant fight-or-flight mode. This isn't anxiety disorder. This is complex PTSD. Your body learned that danger could come at any moment. An explosion of rage, sudden coldness and rejection, unpredictable mood swings, criticism out of nowhere. So your nervous system developed to be ready at all times. It's not broken. It's adapted to survive. Jung's understanding. The autonomous complex. Jung would describe this as an autonomous complex, a cluster of emotions and reactions that operate independently of conscious control. The anxiety isn't something you're choosing. It's an old survival program running in the background, constantly scanning for danger that isn't there anymore. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That chronic anxiety? It's your unconscious still living in the past, trying to protect you from a danger that's no longer present. The cost of hypervigilance. Living in chronic anxiety means exhaustion. Your nervous system is working overtime. Physical health issues. Chronic stress damages the body. Difficulty being present. You're always anticipating the future. Relationship problems. You expect betrayal and abandonment. Inability to trust safety. Even when things are good, you're waiting for the crash. You might be high-functioning, successful, responsible, capable, but underneath, you're running on fumes. The healing path, nervous system regulation. Healing chronic anxiety isn't about positive thinking or just calming down. It's about retraining your nervous system. This requires somatic therapy, working with the body, not just the mind, vagus nerve regulation, breathing exercises, cold exposure, humming, creating genuine safety, consistent, predictable environments, titrated exposure, small doses of relaxation, building tolerance for calm, EMDR or other trauma therapies, mindfulness practices, anchoring in the present moment. One of the most powerful realizations: my body is responding to the past, not the present. I'm safe now even though my body doesn't believe it yet. Jung's prescription was what he called active imagination, dialoguing with your anxiety. Anxiety, I see you. I know you're trying to protect me. Thank you, but I'm safe now. You can rest. It takes time, but your nervous system can learn that the war is over. Trait 12, the achievement emptiness paradox. The final trait is what I call the achievement emptiness paradox, and it might be the most confusing of all. The hollow victory. You work toward a goal for years. You finally achieve it. The promotion, the degree, the recognition, the thing you've been chasing. And when you get there, nothing. Emptiness. A brief moment of relief. Maybe then immediately, okay, what's next? No joy, no satisfaction, no sense of completion. Just a hollow feeling and the question, is this all there is? Why achievements feel empty? For daughters of narcissistic parents, achievement has always been about something external. Earning love, proving worth, avoiding criticism, making the parent proud, filling the emptiness inside. But here's the problem. External achievements can never fill an internal void. You're trying to earn love that should have been freely given. You're trying to prove worth that should have been inherent. You're chasing validation that your parent was never going to provide. So no matter what you achieve, it doesn't work. The emptiness remains. Jung's diagnosis, living the unlived life. Jung had a term for this, living someone else's life rather than your own. He believed that many people, especially those raised by narcissistic or domineering parents, spend their entire lives pursuing goals that were never actually theirs. You're not climbing toward your dreams. You're climbing toward what you think will finally make you acceptable, valuable enough. You're living the unlived life of trying to earn what was already yours by birthright. Love, belonging, inherent worth. The two sides of the paradox. This creates a strange split. Side 1, relentless achievement. constantly setting and reaching goals. External success. Others see you as accomplished, but nothing feels satisfying. Side 2, deep emptiness. Feeling purposeless despite accomplishments. No sense of authentic direction. Existential depression. The question, what's the point? One successful executive told me, I've achieved everything I set out to achieve, and I feel nothing. I thought reaching these goals would make me happy, but I just feel empty, like I've been climbing someone else's mountain. The false summit. There's always another mountain, another goal, another thing that will finally be enough. But it never is, because the problem isn't the mountain, it's that you're climbing for the wrong reasons. Jung wrote, "The greatest tragedy is not death, but life without meaning." For daughters of narcissistic parents, the tragedy is achieving everything while feeling nothing, because none of it was ever really yours. The turning point, finding your path. Healing means asking completely different questions. Not, what will make me successful? But what brings me alive? Not, what will prove my worth? But what do I actually care about? Not, what will make others proud? But at what feels meaningful to me? This is Jung's individuation process, discovering your authentic path, not the one prescribed by your parent or by society's expectations. It might mean leaving a successful career that feels empty, pursuing something with less prestige but more meaning, redefining success on your own terms, accepting that you might disappoint others, choosing aliveness over achievement. The paradox dissolves when you stop climbing someone else's mountain and start walking your own path. Even if that path looks smaller, quieter, less impressive from the outside. So there they are. 12 traits that almost every daughter of narcissistic parents carries. Hypervigilance and reading the room. Chronic self-doubt and questioning reality. People-pleasing and difficulty with boundaries. Perfectionism and fear of failure. Emotional dysregulation and intensity. Difficulty receiving love and compliments. High tolerance for mistreatment. Caretaking and parentification. Identity diffusion and the chameleon effect. Imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud. Chronic anxiety and hyperarousal. The achievement emptiness paradox. The pattern beneath the pattern. But here's what's crucial to understand. These aren't 12 separate issues. They're 12 symptoms of one core wound. That wound is this. You were not seen, valued, or loved for who you authentically are. Instead, you were an extension of your parent, a source of narcissistic supply, a supporting character in their story, valuable only for what you could provide. And from that one wound, all 12 traits flow. Jung's vision, the path of individuation. Carl Jung spent his life studying how people heal from these wounds. His answer was what he called individuation, becoming who you truly are. For daughters of narcissistic parents, individuation means separating from the parent psychologically, even if you maintain contact, discovering your authentic self beneath the survival adaptations, integrating your shadow, the parts of you that were rejected, developing a relationship with your unconscious through dreams, creativity therapy, creating meaning that's genuinely yours. Jung believed this was the central task of the second half of life. But for daughters of narcissistic parents, it's the task of healing, the truth you need to hear. If you recognized yourself in these 12 traits, I want you to know something. These traits don't make you broken, they make you a survivor. Every single one of these patterns was adaptive. They kept you safe. They helped you survive an environment that was psychologically dangerous. The hypervigilance, it protected you. The people-pleasing, it prevented rejection. The perfectionism, it kept you valuable. These traits were brilliant solutions to an impossible situation. The problem is, what helped you survive is now keeping you from thriving. The invitation to heal. Healing is possible. Not easy, but possible. It requires recognizing the patterns, understanding their origins, grieving what you didn't get, learning new ways of being, patience with yourself, support, therapy, community, education. Most importantly, it requires believing this truth. You deserved better. You deserve better now. And it's not too late to give yourself what you never received. Final thought. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." You are not your trauma. You are not your wounds. You are not these 12 traits. You are the person who survived, the person who's seeking to understand, the person who wants to heal. And that person is remarkable. If this video resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Healing is more possible in community. Subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into psychology, trauma, and healing. And most importantly, be gentle with yourself today. You're doing better than you think. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself.